Welcome to the official podcast at ContentChampion.com. Join our heroic quest to discover truly epic content. Introducing your host, the content champion himself, Lost James.
Hi folks, welcome to session 8 of the Content Champion podcast. This time, in my quest to showcase the highest quality content across the web, I'm talking to Steve Kamb of Fitness.Com. Steve's unique approach to blogging in the health and fitness niche and his ability to write very detailed posts that really help people has made him very successful and helped him build a tribe of devoted followers. Steve's a great guy, and I'm sure you'll really enjoy his words of wisdom on all things related to content marketing. So let's get started. And of course, the great thing about a podcast is you can listen to it when you're jogging, on the rowing machine, or on the exercise bike. Thanks, Steve, very much for coming on.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Now, Content Champion is all about showcasing high-quality content, and you're a great exponent of this at Nerd Fitness. Could you start by telling us your story and how the blog got started, please?
Sure thing. So about 5 years ago, I had this idea for a website that I wanted to start. Specifically, I wanted to help nerds get healthy. I thought there was a lack of information specifically dedicated to that group of people, and considering myself being a nerd, I was like, this makes a lot of sense. I can see a lot of parallels between nerd culture and video games and leveling up and getting healthier. So I had the idea to start Fitness.Com. The name just kind of popped into my head. It was like, I like nerds, I love fitness. Let's combine the two. So that was the beginning of Nerd Fitness. When I started, I wasn't really quite sure what I was doing or how it was going to become a business. I just knew I wanted to get started. So I looked at every other popular fitness website out there, saw what they were doing, and tried to emulate them. And they were writing very short articles, publishing multiple times per week. And so that's kind of how I started. I started trying to be like these other websites, even though my niche was very different from any of those other websites. So it was actually a pretty slow process for those first, I want to say 9 months. I think I spent 9 months publishing 5 articles a week while still working my full-time job. And traffic growth was very, very slow because the content wasn't very unique. Sometimes it was unique, sometimes it wasn't. More often than not, unfortunately, it wasn't. And it wasn't until I stumbled across a blog post from a good friend of mine, Adam Baker, who's actually become a good friend in real life. At the time, that was the first time I'd ever heard of him. He had written an article called How to Not Suck at Blogging. And I read it and I realized that I sucked at blogging. I was doing everything wrong. And, I was trying to do the things that I thought I was supposed to do rather than writing the things that made me happy and that were interesting to me in a style that I could really, resonate with. So after reading his post, I decided to completely change up my style. And I switched from 5 short articles a week to 2 really long, in-depth articles full of nerdy references and metaphors and things like that. And almost overnight, the site, thankfully, it already had a decent, a little bit of traffic. When I made that switch, people really jumped on the bandwagon, and it kind of started to take off from there. And since then, it's not only just been a steady, slow climb from, I want to say it's been about 4.5 years now since I officially started the website. And yeah, it was a slow, steady climb, and since then it's just continued to climb a little bit more and more and more, and now recently it's really exploded and continues to climb at a pretty crazy rate. But it was very slow going for that very beginning of my adventure, and glad that I eventually figured things out, that content was really key and important, and being different than everybody else is what allowed me to stand out.
Well, it's such a vibrant blog now. I mean, you've got such an original way of presenting content. You're using before and after images. You've got all the Star Wars references and the great little Lego toys, some of which I bought for my 5-year-old son on his birthday recently. You've got videos. You've got the longer posts, as you were mentioning. Is that sort of a definite strategy for your content creation at Nerd Fitness?
To be honest with you, when I made the switch over to the longer posts, it wasn't necessarily a specific strategy. Like it wasn't like Lego pictures plus Star Wars reference plus fitness thing equals success. It was like, there was no like real official strategy when I started. It was definitely more organic than that. It was like, what would make me happy, and what kind of things would keep me interested if I'm going to be reading an article that's 2,500 words long or 3,000 words long. What's going to keep my attention? What's going to keep me interested? And it's, I realized that yes, education is important, but if you're not also entertaining, then then that information might not get through in the way that you wanted it to. So the best way I found for me to do that was to take something slightly complicated, like some fitness topic like the paleo diet, or doing a specific exercise, or learning how to build proper habits. I wanted to present that information in a way that you couldn't find anywhere else on the internet. And for me, that was through the nerd references, things like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, video games, Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda, things like that. Things that shaped and molded my childhood and my the years that I've spent growing up. I took those things and took and pulled references and metaphors and lessons that I learned from those things into the website. As far as the Lego pictures go, honestly, I think I just remember one article, must have been years back, where I had this idea that I use a website called photopin.com to get all my photos because they're all copyright free as long as I cite them. And I stumbled across a Lego photo about, it was either Star Wars or Indiana Jones. And I just thought it was amazing. And as soon as I found that photo, I put it in an article, and I got like 20 emails from people saying, dude, I love the Lego photos. And I was like, oh, I grew up on Legos. And I think I put them in there initially just because I thought they were great photos. Somebody has taken the time to create and stage and photograph these Lego characters in incredible situations or backgrounds or whatever, that I was like, why not showcase this stuff? Like I grew up with Legos, and I remember building castles and playing, Star Wars and things like that. So I think the pictures made sense for me that way. And then I realized eventually that, another reason why the Lego pictures work so well, I think it's because fitness and diet and things like that can be very overwhelming to some people and pretty intimidating. And some topics might be a little bit more serious or intimidating than the others. But if you show up to a website and you see pictures of like a Lego caveman, you're like, all right, this guy's got a good sense of humor, and this is something, and you kind of mix in some humor and diffuse that potentially tense situation where people are like, oh man, I'm all stressed out. I need to know if I need to do this or that or whatever. And it's like, it's going to be okay. Like, relax. This is, we're going to get you there. I'm going to get you the information in the right way. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to have fun with it, and you're going to know exactly what you need to do afterwards. So I think the Lego pictures do a pretty good job of that. And it's funny, I've actually started seeing some other websites pop up in the nerdy fitness niche that are also using Lego photos. So I guess I've started a Lego movement. Hopefully all the people taking Lego photos on Photopin are happy.
The ultimate compliment. I mean, is it that accessibility, do you think, that is bringing the audience to the content? Or are you still doing promotion? Are you still doing SEO, social media, all that kind of stuff as well?
Great question. Honestly, I don't know very much about SEO stuff. From the beginning, it was never something like I've tried to work on or game or like, oh, I need to be on this page for this particular search topic or anything like that. I just wrote things that I thought would be very helpful to people. And then I pushed it out through social media. And it was very, very slow growth to begin with, but the people that were reading were very dedicated and very passionate. As a result of that, they shared it with their friends, who then shared it with their friends. So although it was slow going to begin with, now it's at the point where, we can just push things out through our social media channels, and it can reach, 100,000 people very, very quickly. As far as SEO stuff goes, Nerd Fitness actually ranks quite highly on a number of terms, even first for some terms here and there. But that wasn't necessarily a strategy of mine. It just so happened that Google happened to like what I was writing, and enough people were linking into it because they found it helpful. So I definitely put the focus on content and then push it out to my audience and kind of let the rest of it take care of itself. It was never any sort of SEO or marketing strategy. Like, I have yet to spend a single dollar on any sort of advertising for Nerd Fitness.
It's amazing. I'm hearing this more and more from really successful bloggers, how they've done nothing with SEO. And I guess, you've got a load of comments on all your posts really, and they get a lot of shares. So you're really hitting the key market there. You're really resonating with your audience, aren't you?
Oh yeah, thank you very much. I feel very fortunate to have a really great group of people in the Nerd Fitness community, and they all are really supportive of each other. And when they ask questions, a lot of people will chime in and help answer them, which is great. I'd love to be everywhere all at once, but that's just not physically possible. So I'm actually really probably most proud of everything of Nerd Fitness would probably be our message boards. We have a community of 16,000 people that are worldwide that are, I think we have something like 520,000 posts currently in the message boards, and it's exploding. And there's 6-week people are organizing challenges and competitions with each other, organizing meetups. So yeah, honestly, I feel really privileged. It's not like I publish a blog and I have a bunch of readers. I honestly feel like I am one guy in a community of people that are all helping each other out. I just happen to be the dude that writes the articles, and everybody else is the one that's taking action from those articles and improving their lives and helping each other out. So yeah, I feel very, very honored to be a part of this really, really cool, nerdy fit community.
How important do you think your personality is in that process? Obviously, you're being self-effacing about, the brand itself. You are the brand in many ways. Is that what people are buying into, do you think?
Honestly, I think it's a combination of things. When you're starting out, a lot of people, I think when they start blogs or businesses, they're kind of afraid to show their face. And they say things like, call us at blah, 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 and what we can do. And it's really just them. Like, it's one person in their company. Like, people follow people. And I think that's going to become more and more apparent. It wasn't really until when I made that switch from 5 posts a week to 2 posts a week, I started to really inject my personality into the articles, into the site, and in every way possible. And I think that's been really helpful, because it makes people feel like they're not just reading a random website from some random company. It's like, oh, there's this guy, Steve, and he's, I feel like I know him already because I read one of his articles, and because it's so freaking long. By the time I get to the end of it, I feel like I know this guy. Like, I write in the exact same way that I talk. It's kind of all over the place. There are little side jokes and inside jokes and just random asides in the middle of a post, just to kind of keep people laughing and having fun, because that's exactly how I talk and exactly how I live. And I'm kind of all over the place and a total goofball. So I have no problem putting and projecting that into my website, because it's not a fake persona I've created. It's just me. And because I get to be myself, I think that allows my content to really shine, because I'm not trying to be something that I'm not. And as a result of that, people that find the website feel like they know me, and I've worked really hard to build up trust and goodwill through the site and through the 5 years and 500 posts and things like that. So within a couple of weeks, most people probably tend to feel like they know exactly who Steve Kamb is, which is great, because, like I said, I think people follow people, and it's really important, especially if you're taking fitness advice or diet advice or trying to improve yourself. You need to know where that advice is coming from and if it's somebody that you can trust.
It's interesting, because you're saying the same thing as a number of other successful bloggers I've talked to, Neil Patel, Corbett Barr. It's kind of a sort of modesty that you've actually found your voice, which is a really difficult thing to do in writing terms. I mean, I'm a copywriter and I'm writing for companies all the time, and they're constantly soul searching to find the right tone of voice. And to have found that, it's a really sort of powerful tool to use, isn't it?
Yeah, and thank you for that. It took a long time. Like I said, it took me 9 months of writing and publishing every single day until I finally found that voice. And I think over those 9 months, I definitely got better at it. It was just very, very slow going. It wasn't until I made that big switch and made some relatively large changes to the style and direction of my writing that things took off.
When it did take off, had you written a specific post and you thought, okay, this is going to be a success now? This is getting exciting now. I can see this really, really working.
I wouldn't say it was honestly one specific post that I was like, I'm going to hit publish and this is going to be it. I didn't never looked at it like that. I just saw it as more slow, consistent growth, and getting more emails from people saying, I feel like I've found my new home, resonated with me and made me realize, okay, somehow, some way, this site is going to take off and it's going to allow me to be able to focus on it full time. I think if I had to point to one decision or one moment, a gentleman by the name of Brett, who runs a website called artofmanliness.com, giant community, great content, awesome guy. I had emailed him just to say thanks for what he was doing and that he was a huge inspiration for me, and didn't ask for anything, didn't even link him to my website. But we bounced a couple emails back and forth over a course of a couple of months. And at one point, he shot me an email and said, hey, by the way, I saw your email address was Steve at Nerd Fitness. So I was curious. I went to nerdfitness.com. I absolutely love what you're doing and would love for you to write for me. Write an article. Whenever you want to write something for Art of Manliness, let me know, and it's yours. And that blew me away. I was like, if this guy who runs, an uber successful blog and has hundreds of thousands of people reading him on a monthly basis, if he thinks what I'm doing is on the right path, then there's got to be a way for me to make this thing work. So that was really, really inspiring and really encouraging for me to kind of get that nod of approval from somebody that was there and was doing it. So I knew I was on the right path at that point. If I had to pick a specific post where I kind of felt like, okay, I've made it, I want to say it was December of 2009. December 2010. December of 2010, I made the decision that at this point I had already gone full time with the website. I was going to sell all of my stuff and begin this epic around the world adventure. And I wrote this really, really detailed post about how I was able to book the trip for so cheap. And it was something that was not necessarily related to fitness. I mean, it was about my traveling and how I, specific credit cards I signed up for and deals that I had found and things like that. So I wasn't sure if it was going to resonate with the nerd fitness audience at all. I hit publish on it, and within an hour or two, it hit #1 on Hacker News, and I'd been contacted by Gizmodo, and they wanted to syndicate the content on their website. So they republished the article on Gizmodo later on that afternoon. And within a week, I was doing radio interviews with radio stations all over the United States, and the audience of Nerd Fitness skyrocketed for a couple of weeks as a result of that post. And to this day, it still sends quite a bit of traffic to Nerd Fitness, people that are interested in traveling and seeing the world. And I kind of related it to living an adventure game, but in real life. So that's how I looked at the travel. Like, I'm going to different continents and having all these great adventures is important for personal growth, along with diet and fitness. It's also important to push yourself and have new experiences and things like that. So when that post went live and sent a crazy amount of traffic to the site and things kind of really blew up, that was definitely a turning point. As far as the graph would go, it was a pretty steady climb up to that point, and then the curve definitely went much more vertical after that.
It must have been so exciting. I mean, how difficult is it coming up with such exceptional content on an ongoing basis?
It's a challenge, but it's a challenge that I love. Like I said, I've published 500 articles. And I'm coming up for every article I write, I have ideas for 3 more that are sitting around. I think I have drafts. I have like 100-something drafts waiting in my my WordPress backend, part of the content management system of Nerd Fitness.
Really. So they're all in there waiting to go, and you're working on different ideas all at the same time.
Yeah. So I'll come up with an idea, and I'll just some of them are even just blog post titles, and then it'll be like a couple of paragraphs in there, and then I'll say like, I'm not really. This is a great idea, but I'm focusing on something else. So. I'm always coming up with ideas. I don't think I'm ever honestly going to be able to run out of content, because there are so many people that need to be helped and so many people that can be inspired in so many different ways that I honestly enjoy the challenges. Like, how can I relate this movie that has nothing to do with fitness and diet, seemingly, how can I relate that to helping you live a better life? Or is there a particular topic that I think has not been covered properly in a specific way that I could really help with? So, for example, I wrote an article on the paleo diet, and I didn't write it and say like, this article is gonna make me, is gonna drive all sorts of traffic to Nerd Fitness. I wrote it because I couldn't. The diet itself, to me, until I read a number of articles and read a couple of books, did the diet feel like something I could really get behind and something that made sense to me. I was like, man, if it took that long, like, why don't I write a beginner's guide to the paleo diet, because that's something that I would have used at the time, and there are probably people out there that have a lot of questions. Why don't I put that article together? And I wrote it 2 years ago at this point, 2.5 years ago maybe, and it consistently sits in the top 5 on 5, anywhere between 3 and 6 or 7 on the first page of Google for paleo diet searches. It's like #1 is the guy that invented it, #2 is Wikipedia. The Wikipedia page for it, and then Nerd Fitness was often #3 for a considerable amount of time. Not because I gamed the system or not because I got other people to write about it. I just tried to write an article that would really help a lot of people, and as a result, a lot of people linked to it and clicked to it and shared it, and Google, kind of recognized and rewarded me for that, which has been really helpful. But it's also been nice because I never actually planned for that strategy, so it kind of happened as a side effect of my overall strategy of just creating things that that's unique and very helpful and it makes things very approachable for somebody that is brand new and overwhelmed.
You're listening to the Content Champion podcast, showcasing high-quality content across the web.
It's really heartening to hear, actually, that you can just, go out there, find your audience. Although you are part of the process in that your personality is introduced into the content itself, that content is designed to help your audience, and for no other reason. Really, that's the main influence behind it. And then you get great rankings, you get more social media shares, you build your tribe, as it were, from helping others, which is a lovely thing to do, really, isn't it?
Yeah, honestly, it's refreshing. Honestly, like I think I would probably drive myself crazy if I had to rely on Google rankings, or if I was like, oh geez, if I'm number 2 now instead of number 1, or if I'm not on the first page for this or that, then my business is going to go belly up. And who knows? Google changes their algorithms all the time. As a result of one of their changes 2 years ago, I think is why we started ranking a lot higher for a lot of stuff. I was okay with it, but it wasn't anything I planned for. And I think if you try to plan for a lot of those things, then Google changes their algorithms yet again. Then you have to learn the whole new system and try to fix things going another direction, or adjust your content in a certain way. I just focused on the community and helping people on a more personal level, instead of focusing on SEO and getting traffic that way. Because of that, I think people that find Nerd Fitness come into it already having a much lower level of kind of, I don't want to say scrutiny, but I think if somebody stumbles across a website from Google, they're going to be far less likely to take information from it than if it came from a friend that they really trusted and it came highly recommended. So I think that's why Nerd Fitness has been able to be successful, and the tribe itself has grown so strong, and they really feel like they're part of something special. I think people that come in through Google, they might get there. I think it's just probably a smaller percentage, and it might take them a little bit longer. So it's been nice to be able to just focus on people one-to-one, and anything else that comes in through Google has been like a really, really nice side effect.
Sure. And another focus, I guess, is the look and feel of the site. You've got a very clean, crisp blog design, and I notice you do things like you're putting key posts in the sidebar in sort of graphical boxes and things like that. How important is that in getting, driving higher conversions and getting stickiness with the audience, with the content?
Sure. I think it's honestly very important. Like I said, I've published 500 articles, and for somebody that stumbles across the site right now, has never heard of Nerd Fitness before, there are probably 10, 15 key posts that I would love for them to read that I think would really help them when they're getting started. So I make sure those articles are very, very easy to find. And if you come to Nerd Fitness and sign up for the email list, I'm going to let you know what those articles are and how you can, which ones you should be reading, and how important they are to helping you accomplish what you want to do. So definitely a big plan behind that is just to make sure people find the best stuff that's been out there and the things that have helped the most people. I don't want to have to make them go back through 5 years of articles to find the best stuff. I want to let them know, like, I got you. Like, I've been writing this stuff, and these are the things that have helped the people the most, and the things that have resonated the most with people. So it's right here for you, and have at it. I'd love for you to read them. And if they resonate with you, then we'd love to have you be part of the community.
So on this sort of tip of helping people out, if my listeners are, thinking about starting a new blog themselves, what advice would you give them in that circumstance?
Honestly, I think one of the biggest thing that has allowed Nerd Fitness to thrive is that when I write an article, I want people to come away from that article with very specific direction. Like, I don't want them to read it and say, like, oh, I feel really motivated, but I don't know what I should be doing. So I tell them exactly what to do. Like, I'm very specific in my instruction. Like, if you are going to try to eat better, like at the end of the post, it'll say, like, I want you today to do one thing, and this is that one thing I need you to do. Or here are the 4 steps, and follow them step by step by step. So many people, when they're trying to make a change in their life, whether it's with a business or their personal health or whatever, they're so afraid of making a mistake that they kind of paralyze themselves with overthinking it. And they don't, they're worried if they're going to do, should I do A or B? And they spend 2 months worrying about doing A or B, when in reality, either one probably would have got them where they needed to go. So I want people to leave an article motivated and inspired, and have a very specific sense of direction, so they know exactly what needs to be done in order for them to live a better life today than they did yesterday. I think a lot of people are kind of too vague, or they're afraid of taking a stance on something. So I let people know, like, hey, this might not work for everybody, but this is what's worked for me, or this is what has worked for these people that have had success stories. This is exactly what they did and how they did it. So you have a blueprint for you to follow to get started. And then from there, you can make adjustments and grow.
So I guess the key to all this, coming back to the tribe, I think it was Seth Godin that talked about tribes, wasn't it? And knowing your tribe.
Yep.
The key to online business, irrespective of what the search engines are doing, social media, everything else, is to build a tribe and talk to them and help them out, really. Simple as that, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, if you sign up for the email list at Nerd Fitness, the first thing I ask you in there is reply to this email and let me know what you're struggling with. And I now have, 30,000 emails from people that say, this is exactly what I'm struggling with. And I know exactly what I should be writing about. I know what the majority of my audience is having is challenged by, and I know what I should be writing about, and I know how I can connect with these people, and I know what the most important type of article I could be writing at that next moment could be. So I think it's really important to talk to people. Back when I started Nerd Fitness, the first thing that I did was whenever anybody left a comment on the website, I would email them directly, and I would say, I'd really appreciate you taking the time to leave a comment. I would love to hear more about what you're struggling with and how else I can help. And I connected with people on a one-to-one level. Unfortunately, I can't do that anymore just due to the amount of time that would take. But when it started, it was really beneficial to connect with people and let people know, like, well, this isn't just a random website. Like, this guy actually cares and he's trying to help, and he wants to know what else I'm looking for. Like, I think it kind of made them feel a little bit more important and a little more inclusive than just being a reader of a website. They were a more active participant in help shaping the direction of the website. And to this day, I still, I solicit feedback as often as possible. I ask people as often as possible if, what are the things they'd like me to be writing about, or if there's a topic that I haven't addressed yet that they would appreciate, and things like that. As far as the community goes, that thing is an entity of its own almost. We have something like 20 plus moderators, and they let me know what they want and what kind of contests they want and what other features need to be added to it, and I give it to them. So I hate to make it sound so simple, but it's honestly connect with people, find out what they're struggling with, and then give them specific information and advice to help them, and be thankful that they're taking the time and spending their most valuable resource, their attention, and spending that with you and your website is awesome.
Well, I mean, it's really inspiring hearing you talking like this, because this is something, if people can identify an interest or a passion that they can help people with, they can definitely do. And I think we get hung up with the minutiae of, like you say, Google rankings and how do I do this and how do I do that, and it's kind of not about you, it's about the people you're trying to help. And if you look at it from that perspective, that's where the growth potential is. So that's really heartening. Anyway, just broadening things out now on
Sure.
Looking at perhaps the whole spectrum of content production and how things are going with the search engines. You're an expert in the blogging and online business space. So what trends do you see developing over the next year or so in content marketing?
I wouldn't call myself an expert. Everybody's a student, I think, and I love learning and love updating and changing and going that direction. As far as where I see things headed, honestly, I really hope honesty and integrity are the two big drivers. And I think more and more people are realizing that they can run an online business and do so without resorting to shady marketing tactics or really ugly ads and pop-up ads and focusing on page views and advertisements and sales like that. And instead putting your focus on building that tribe of people and really putting the focus on getting a group of people that have similar interests together in the same place and finding a way to help them, and understanding you don't need hundreds of thousands of page views and millions of page views and hundreds of thousands of hits and first page Google rankings. You can build your tribe one person at a time. You can even find, in person or online via Facebook or Twitter or whatever. I think being able to focus on just building that audience one by one and understanding that you can make a business with a very, very small group of people if you're providing them with the right type of information and your message or your product or whatever really helps them out. I think that's the direction I see things heading, is kind of going back to, I think Gary Vaynerchuk said it perfectly in his book, The Thank You Economy. And he talked about how we're moving back towards how things used to be, where instead of connecting with giant companies and focusing on that, instead it's kind of all little tiny niches, and you support certain people because you believe in them or because they make a product that speaks to you, instead of I'll just give me the cheapest thing and I'll get my information from this boring news site or whatever. I think people are starting to understand that they can get due to the leveling of the playing field from the internet. People can build a small business and connect with people on a one-to-one level and live a great life without having to resort to kind of the shady crap that has existed online for so long. And I think I think those things will still be present. I just hope they start to fade a little bit more, and the direction that the rest of us are heading hopefully becomes more prominent.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating stuff. I guess the internet is becoming a very democratic place to do business.
Absolutely.
Sure. Okay. Well, this has been a great conversation. I'm just going to move on now to your guides, the superb guides that you have for sale on your blog. There's one for fitness, one for strength, and one for running. Can you remind my listeners where we can find these, please?
Yeah, sure. If you just go to nerdfitness.com, there's one of the menu bar buttons is called the fitness guides, and that allows you to, or fitness resources, and you can find them right there. Honestly, I wrote those guides because I kept getting questions from people that said, Steve, I love what you're doing. I'm ready to get started with exercise, but just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like, I need specific workout plans that I can follow, and diet advice that kind of like a diet blueprint. So after getting so many questions from people asking for these things, it was an easy decision to be made. I was like, okay, guys, well, I love this site and this is something I'd love to do full time. I'm going to make I'm going to make an ebook that answers all of your questions and holds your hand through the entire process and allows you to build really solid momentum in your journey for getting healthier and stronger. And that was how the Rebel Fitness Guide was born. And since then, I've written 2 others and currently working on a 4th. But it's actually worked out pretty nicely. I think the people that need it use it, and those that don't need it don't pick it up, and they still hang out on the message boards and still organize meetups and things like that. And I think that's awesome. At the end of the day, the goal is to help as many people as possible get healthy. And whether it's from my ebook or an article I've written or a different website, the important thing is that they get what they want out of their time spent online getting their information. And if it helps them live better, then awesome. I'm doing something right, and the more people I can help, the better things are going to be.
Wait for it, listeners. Here comes the PS question.
Let's move on to the final thing I like to do. It's called the PS question. It's where I ask, you are an expert. I'm going to say you're an expert. You're a professional blogger. You know the score. Give us one advanced traffic or content marketing strategy that can help us to get more eyeballs onto our content.
Great question. I would say don't be afraid of writing really, really long articles. If you have a topic that you think deserves 3,000 words or 4,000 words, don't shy away from it. Don't feel like you need to split it into 8 different posts of 500 words because people only read 500 words. That's crap. Yeah, you might get more eyeballs looking at it, but they're going to skim your article and then move on to the next article and skim that one and forget about yours. And, there are plenty of people that just skim articles all day long and then never act on any of them. Having 1,000 people look at your website, but none of them take action is nothing compared to having 10 people read a 4,000 word post, to have 10 people actually get all the way to the bottom, but then take action on it. So along the lines of don't be afraid to shy away from long content, don't be afraid to take a stance and provide very, very specific advice or steps that they can take. Vagueness or kind of not taking that stance might leave people with a little bit of motivation, but it might not inspire them to actually go outside and do something about it. So if you're in the self-help section of the online business world, be able to provide specific advice and give people an exact blueprint to follow for certain things. And you'll be far more likely for them to actually do it and then share it with their friends. And that's the type of stuff that makes its way around the internet. That's why my travel article, although not related to nerd fitness, kind of took over the internet for a day or two. It was because it was this ridiculous idea. You know, it was like, I'm traveling the world and I did the entire thing for $418. Here's exactly how I did it, step by step, with links. Every single tiny detail and question that I thought people might have had, I answered it in that article. And as a result of that, it got shared by so many people and spread in so many different directions. It ended up being, I think it was like the number 2 how-to article of 2010 on Gizmodo, second to how to jailbreak your iPhone. And it was because it told you exactly how to do something. So those are the articles I find are the most helpful. The long ones, full of detail and full of very, very specific advice. Those are the ones that get shared, and those are the ones that people actually take action on.
Well, it's great advice. And again, it's very heartening when, my listeners maybe are struggling for motivation with their blogging or content production, that if they take a step back and say, well, look, I'm actually trying to help people, and look at it from that perspective, the whole thing becomes much more manageable and I guess just more fun, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great way of looking at it. When somebody, you have to put yourself in the shoes of your reader. If they've never visited your website before and they show up to your website, their question is, how is this website going to make my life better? So the less you can make it about yourself, and obviously the more you make it about them, while still being able to kind of inject your personality into the site. And even when I do write about myself or write about struggles I have personally or trips that I've taken, I always find a way to relate it back to the reader and the lessons they can learn and things they can take from that content so that they can then take action on it.
Well, look, Steve, I really appreciate your time. You've been really generous. It's been a fascinating discussion. And I recommend my listeners go along to Fitness.Com and look at all your stuff. It's a great place to be. And again, thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me.
So there we are, folks. That was session 8 of the Content Champion podcast. Thanks very much again to Steve Kamb from Fitness.com. What a great interview. He's really generous with his time. You can find this podcast at contentchampion.com/podcast. We're also on Stitcher Radio, the BlackBerry Network, and of course on iTunes. But until next time...
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's the Content Champion.